every story of abuse begins the same way, not with obvious abuse, but with trusting. A coach who believes in an athlete, a teacher who sees potential, a mentor who says, "You're special." Often these words are sincere, but sometimes support and encouragement are the first threads in a web. Some of you may find this topic difficult, and I promise it's easier to learn about it now than to have you or a loved one live through it later. And for those of you who have lived through it or are living through it, I hope you'll feel supported. Most of us recognize blatant abuse, yelling, hitting, sexual touching. But the sad reality is that abuse rarely begins with obvious transgressions. It begins with attention, encouragement, possibility. In other words, grooming. Grooming is the predatory act of manipulating an individual to make them isolated and dependent, and thus vulnerable to increasingly abusive behavior. Studies grossly underreport child sexual abuse, and they almost completely neglect grooming. And for context, here are a few stats. The U.S. Department of Education states that 1 in 10 children is groomed during their K-12 education. And this statistic doesn't account for grooming in other settings. The CDC Fast Facts page says 1 in 4 girls and 1 in 20 boys are victims of child sexual abuse. And 91% of perpetrators are someone known and trusted by the child and the child's family. It's often believed that grooming leads to abuse, but grooming is abuse, covert emotional abuse. In fact, data from the International Olympic Committee indicates that psychological abuse is as harmful or more harmful than physical or sexual abuse, and it's more likely to lead to PTSD and dissociation. Children and adults are susceptible to grooming in any setting where someone with power is trusted with someone else's well-being. Sports, schools, religious communities, the arts, businesses, and even families. Abusers are like sneaky spiders. They weave their webs one shimmering thread at a time, intentionally, delicately, almost invisibly. They may take months or even years to groom their victim. I am a physician, mother, and former Stanford gymnast. I've devoted my professional life to helping people thrive physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. And I'm an expert in how sneaky spiders groom their prey. Because I'm a survivor, I prefer sur-thrivor of decades of abuse by a former coach. The coach who abused me was not an athletic coach, but a life coach. And the abuse was not physical or sexual, but financial and emotional. You may wonder, why didn't I, as a med student, realize I was being abused? But here's the thing. While it was happening, her grooming didn't feel like abuse. It felt like support, guidance, love. Big red flag. Initially, the coach promised she would help me achieve my goals, fulfill my potential, evolve. And then, over time, she instilled an intense fear that I couldn't realize my dreams without her. bigger red flag. After 3 decades, I asked to graduate to end the coaching relationship, but she declared that I could not. Biggest red flag. Then she conveniently claimed that I had serious memory issues and that I needed her ongoing support. When I pushed back, she insisted I get a full neuropsychological evaluation. It never occurred to me that her concerns about my well-being were a ploy to maintain control. She'd coached me to be compliant, and I still truly believed that she had my best interests at heart, so I followed her suggestion. The neuropsychologist conducted extensive testing and interviewed both the coach and my husband. Ultimately, the neuropsychologist determined the coaching relationship was a relationship of undue influence, also known as covert emotional abuse, or coercive control, or, drum roll please, grooming. The diagnosis and fallout shattered me. Someone I had loved and trusted with all my heart had been using and abusing me for decades. Suddenly, the light shifted, and I saw the manipulative patterns she had woven to trap me. Once I saw her web, I realized something even more disturbing. Every abusive coach, music teacher, tutor, boss, life partner, and cult leader weaves a similar web to trap their victims. Let's take abusive coaches grooming athletes. Abusers weave their webs using several powerful threads. The 3 primary threads are specialness, fear, isolation. 3 forces that, when woven together, can trap even the most capable, intelligent people, let alone our vulnerable children. The first thread a sneaky spider weaves into their web is specialness. In other words, grooming begins subtly, with behaviors designed to evoke connection and excitement. You're one of the best athletes I've ever coached. You're so lucky to be training with me. I will make your dreams come true. These words sound supportive, but in the context of grooming, they're designed to create what psychologists call the chosen one effect. The child feels seen, understood, cherished. Another way abusers make victims feel special is by love bombing them. Love bombing is specialness on steroids. It includes behaviors like texting or messaging a child individually, offering a child private sessions or a ride home, giving a child little treats or extravagant gifts, and inviting the child on fun outings. These actions seem generous, but they're manipulative. The second thread is fear. Not obvious fear, at least not at first. Abusers alternate manufacturing experiences of intimacy with feelings of escalating dread. You can be a champion if you do what I say. Maybe you just don't have what it takes. If you leave me, you will be a failure, a nobody. The sneaky spider weaves the specialness and fear together on purpose. It's very, very confusing. The athlete feels special. The athlete trusts the coach. The athlete doubts himself. The athlete believes he needs the coach. He feels afraid of the coach, afraid of leaving the coach, and even afraid of his own fear, afraid that his fear rather than the coach's abuse is what is holding him back. Eventually, he's not just entangled, he's encased and paralyzed. The third thread is isolation, psychological isolation. Abusers are terrified of being caught, so they spread rumors and tell lies about anyone who sees the web. An uneasy teammate is a bad influence. Your teammate's bringing you down. Don't hang out with her. A concerned parent is unsupportive. Your dad doesn't understand what it takes to be great. Your mom doesn't really support you, not like I do. The coach's message is, trust me, not them. Eventually, the child ends up emotionally separated from anyone who can show her the web and prove that the coach is a spider, because an isolated victim is easy to trap. Children and adults struggle to see the difference between true mentorship and cruel manipulation. But here's the distinction. True mentors strengthen a child's confidence and independence. Abusers force victims to adore, fear, and depend on them. Most children and parents trust their coaches, and most coaches deserve our trust, really. But, unfortunately, sneaky spiders exploit this trust, and grooming isn't isolated to sports, nor is it isolated to children. Adults can be trapped as well. I was. But maybe if as a child I'd been taught to see the threads, I could have escaped the coach's web. Grooming depends on ignorance and silence. The solution is communication and education. One mom told me the girls in her carpool frequently said, "Coach got mad at me again today." It wasn't until she said the magic phrase, "Tell me more," that the girls confided, "Coach is creepy. Coach is a bully. Coach touched my butt 3 times today." Children can't recognize patterns they've never been taught to see. Abuse begins with grooming, and true prevention begins with teaching children to see the shimmering threads in the spider's web: specialness, fear, isolation, almost invisible on their own, devastating when woven together. You have the power to protect your children from abuse. Teach them about sneaky spiders and the webs they weave. Give them precise language for all forms of abuse. A child who can confidently describe abusive behaviors, including grooming and using proper anatomical terms for sexual body parts, is much less likely to be abused. Every time you talk with your child, she learns that it's safe to talk with you about anything. And of course, believe your child when he reports abuse. Finally, demand that your sports clubs, schools, houses of worships, and community organization enact robust prevention protocols. That's a talk for another day. When children and adults understand and talk about grooming, the web is seen, the spider is exposed, and ideally, people remove the spider. Remember, grooming is abuse. Abusers are sneaky spiders. You can empower the children, teens, and young adults in your life to spot the webs they weave. When a child can see the web, she can escape even the sneakiest spider. Together, we can protect our children from abuse and the devastating long-term consequences. Thank you.